Now, welcome to 12 Hats Radio. I've got a very special guest here in the studio today. We've got Adam Mendler over from California. And Adam, as with all my guests on the show, can you give me a 3-minute elevator pitch on 30-minute mentors?
I would love to. Dave, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
My
Really fired
pleasure.
up about it.
Yeah.
Thanks again. So 30-Minute Mentors is a pretty new podcast launched in late January. And every week I go one-on-one with one of the top leaders in the world, definitely one of the top leaders in America. So I interview highly successful CEOs, founders, celebrities, athletes, military leaders. I'm interviewing founders and CEOs of household name companies,
Oh, wow.
retired 3 and 4-star generals and admirals, celebrities that everyone has heard of, whether you're in Los Angeles or in Perth. I'm interviewing people who are well worth listening to. And we're going one-on-one on how each of these individuals have gotten to the top, and more importantly, their best advice for listeners on how they can get to the top as well. So my goal for each episode really is for anyone listening to be able to walk away with really practical, actionable advice that they can apply to their lives to become better personally and better professionally. Dave, to answer your question, I'm a very big believer in the power of mentorship.
Okay.
I've been a beneficiary of mentorship in my life. And what I really hope to give listeners from this podcast is access to the best network of mentors possible. So
Interesting.
by listening, they can have 30 minutes with a mentor who can give them really, really helpful advice that can make a difference in their lives.
So who's some of the well-known people you have interviewed over your journey so far?
So I've had, I want to say as of the time of the recording, we've done about 15 episodes that have been released. I have done a number more that haven't been released yet, but among the episodes that have been released, we've had the CEO of Gold's Gym, we've had the co-founder of Kayak, the CEO of Deloitte Consulting, we had Admiral Jim Stavridis, retired 4-star admiral, former chief allied commander of NATO. Rob Lowe was a guest on the podcast. Suzanne Summers was a guest on the podcast. So I think basketball is a little bit popular in Australia. We had Rick Barry, one of the greatest NBA players of all time, on the show.
I'm a huge basketball fan, so it's
are you okay?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. So what's Rob Lowe like?
Great guy. Yeah, great guy. Really awesome conversation. We had great chat off the air, had a great chat on the air. It was just a really good episode. And what was awesome about that conversation with Rob was, he really went deep. He really opened up on some issues that anyone who's listened to the episode has found really valuable. He wasn't afraid to share some very personal advice, and it was one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah. And looking at your website, you also have been doing a lot of public speaking. Can you just enlighten us what you've been talking about?
Sure. Yeah, I love giving talks. It's a little bit harder to do public speaking right now because of coronavirus. There's no one to really talk to. So I'm talking to you and to your audience, and this is my form of public speaking right now, is by just trying to amplify my message to as many people as possible. But I love it. I love being able to make as much of an impact as I can. That's my favorite part of public speaking, is the ability to walk into a room and really be able to affect people's lives in a positive way. Hopefully I can do that today in the course of our episode. And it really is something that I'm passionate about, and try to wear my passion on my sleeve. I know that when you're in Australia, and every Australian I know lives their passion on their sleeve,
Mm.
lives and breathes passion. And that's something that I share in common with you, with all of my Australian friends. Is I'm a deeply passionate person, and I love other people who are highly passionate.
Yeah. Of course, also, it's not all about success. I'm also about sharing people's failures on the way. So, is there any failures you had in the past, and what were the lessons you learned from them?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, we could spend this entire show just on my failures. We could probably spend your entire series just on my failures. Every day, excuse me, every day brings about a new set of failures.
Mm.
If you're not failing, you're not trying.
That's right.
I think it's less important to fail. I think what's more important is to recognize that you're going to fail and to learn from your failures, to stay positive, and to continue to push forward.
Yeah.
I mean, we can kind of talk about lots of my failures, but just one of them, when we started the Bellows Group, my parent company for my different businesses, we had this genius idea of taking all of the ideas that we had and pushing on them all at once. And it was such a genius idea that a year and a half into doing it, we pretty much burned through all of our money.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so that was a pretty big failure. And our backs were up against the wall. And it forced us to really learn quickly how to focus, how to run lean, nimble, successful businesses. It kind of, it's like taking a cold shower.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to do it, but if there's no hot water, you do it and you're better for it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I probably could say the whole world's taking a cold shower at the moment with all this crisis going on. I think I think we'll all be better for it at the end of the tunnel. And as all my guests too, what's driving your curiosity right now?
Yeah, I feel like every day there's a new interesting story, and for me personally, professionally, I'm always interested in the topic that I speak a lot about. That's the focal point of my writing and the focal point of my podcast, which is leadership. How do we become better leaders? Leadership is important not only because when you become a better leader, you can improve yourself, you can improve your own performance, but more importantly, leadership impacts the lives of everyone around you. A great leader will positively impact every single person in his or her organization, every single one of his or her employees, every single one of his or her customers, investors. Every stakeholder is positively impacted by great leadership. Yeah. So that's something that I'm always excited to learn about. As much as I know, as much as I write and speak about, you could always learn more. And when I interview the great leaders who I do on my show, I'm always learning. Yeah. My audience is learning, but I'm learning with them. Yeah. So that's a topic that, for all I know, there's so much more to know. Yeah, well, that's a universal truth after all, because the great ones always learn, and it's always, education is a lifetime process. So I think there's quite a good nugget of information right there. And finally, is there any lighthearted stories you could like to share with my listeners? Because this is not all just about business. I like to entertain the troops. Well, we were all hunkered down in lockdown. So, anything you'd like to share with us? Doesn't have to be business related. Sure. Well, I mean, we spoke a little bit about Australia and passionate Australians. So I'm going to give a little bit of a shout out to a good buddy of mine named Sarab, who is a very passionate Australian. And when I was in business school, I got my MBA at UCLA. Sarab was my good buddy and a classmate of mine at UCLA Business School. We were workout buddies. We would hang out all the time in business school. And I miss him. I don't see him because we live in different parts of the world. But at the gym, in class, when we would hang out afterwards, we would hang out all the time. I would always hear about how terrible a place Sydney is because Sarab, lived in Melbourne. So of course, Sydney is this just god awful place. So for years, I just had this image in my mind of Sydney being this hellhole. And, I just pictured the most awful things you could picture about a place was my picture of Sydney. And over the years, I've met people from Sydney, and I would tell them this. Yeah. Oh, you're from Sydney. I'm so sorry for you. What a terrible place. My friend Sarab was telling me about it, how awful it is. And they say, oh, you're right. He's from Melbourne, isn't he? Yeah, why? Oh, well, Melbourne, you don't want to go there. So,
yeah.
I think hopefully your listeners have some perspective on that.
Yeah, that's true. I think we all I think it's all Australian cities all got these stereotypes. And well, you look at Sydney, it's the first place obviously settled by the convicts, but also they say it's the city that was founded by a wandering cow because all the roads don't make sense.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Sydney's kind of like New York, I guess. Sydney siders do mean business and they are quite aggressive. I mean,
yeah.
And Melbourne.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, Melbourne.
I've heard that analogy quite a bit.
Yeah.
Comparison between Sydney and New York. And in the U.S., we have a lot of people who hate on New York. I lived in New York for a couple of years after college.
Yeah.
My family is originally from New York.
All right.
I hate New York sports teams. I'm not a fan of, the Yankees or the Mets or the Knicks, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good. Well, thanks for coming onto the show, Adam. I much appreciated someone of your caliber agreeing to come onto on 12 Hats Radio, and I'll put out your links to your podcast for my listeners in the show notes.
Dave, thank you so much for having me. This was a ton of fun. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Awesome experience.
No worries.